Does it matter? And if so, why does it matter? Now, if you're an author, especially a fiction author, you've probably asked yourself this question maybe after you're trying to figure out something with your sales or even just trying to get the book done or get the book started. Maybe there is some ice cream involved or some wine of either the WHINE variety or the WINE variety. Personally, when I tend to ask this question, sometimes I'm in a part of my manuscript where I'm going, maybe I should be an accountant and move to Fiji. That sounds really good. Instead of having to deal with all of this weird abstract stuff that's so confusing and my story is very bitey, I can just deal with numbers and spreadsheets in a place like Fiji where there's all these beaches. And then, my friends talk me out of it because in the end, I need to finish the book. But here's the thing. While this question might seem kind of existential or airy-fairy or just something you kind of cast into the stars or the skies while you're wondering, what is life anyway? It actually is a really pivotal question that I found that authors tend to skip over. And we tend to go right to, why does it matter? Instead of talking about, does it actually matter to begin with? And these two questions, and especially starting with, does it matter? And then why does it matter? Or of course, why doesn't it matter? These are crucial questions that can enact a lot of change and really positive momentum in your author life. And they're actually a secret for author longevity and how to survive in a crazy author life. And you know me, I'm all about your survival and thrival and all of that fun stuff. So hang around because we're going to dive into these questions and how they can help you to move forward. So people, especially people in the author industry who are author coaches or helpers or all those things, they'll talk about you need to find your why. You need to find your reason. You need to find your purpose and all of that. And that is completely legitimate. And those are good questions to ask. So that is good advice. But the whole question of does it even matter to begin with is one that I think we need to make sure we're focusing on a bit more. And that's why we're going to dive into that one today. And of course, this is Janeen Ippolito with the Author Culture Podcast and Videocast, formerly the Author Elevate Podcast, formerly the Own Your Unique Words Podcast. And before that, I was doing Indie Book Magic with H.L. Burke we started in 2017. I've been around a lot. And we're all here to discuss how authors just like you can think well, do well, and live well in the chaotic publishing industry. As I kind of dug through everything that I was working on with trying to figure out my own brand and my own, not just why does it matter, but does it matter? This is really what I care about. And this is the big thing that ties everything else together. And I'm pretty sure it's actually the reason why y'all are here, because of course it's great to get marketing advice and tips and tricks and industry expertise and all of that. Totally awesome. But of course you want to have it in a context of this is going to help me to move forward and have a life that I don't hate. And I'm not waking up every morning going, why did I agree to this kind of author life? It doesn't fit me. Everyone said, oh yeah, it'll be fantastic. And I can't stand it. And so I want you to make sure that you are thinking well about what you're doing, that you're doing well and doing things that make sense for you and your story and your goals. And then of course, living well so that you can keep living and existing and doing the awesome things you do, because the world totally does need your stories. And I'm hard at work behind the scenes, getting all kinds of content ready and figuring everything out and putting all my ducks in a row for once, or at least getting them out of the rave and back into some kind of natural space where they're not quite so spastic. But I did want to drop this bit of encouragement for all of you out there, especially as right now it's October 30th, 2024 as I'm recording this, and things are just a bit chaotic and weird in both the publishing industry and the world at large. And it's nuts. And I figure we all could use some encouragement, and I am here to give it, partly because I also need it myself. So when we're talking about does it matter, as we dive into this, of course, I'm going to put myself on the chopping block here, and we're going to sit down and figure out what this actually looks like to ask yourself the question, does it matter? Instead of just the question, why does it matter? Jumping ahead to the assuming that it actually matters to you. And sometimes I do wonder why as authors we'll skip right to the why does it matter and why is it important without pausing and saying, well, does it even matter to begin with? And maybe it's just a matter of semantics. Maybe it's just a matter of slang in the culture. Maybe we're just used to speaking a certain way. That's completely legit. But it could also be that maybe we're actually scared to face that question. We want the comfort of course it matters, because everyone else in my author group is talking about why it matters and their reasons. Everyone else is talking about this as if they already have it figured out or they're on their way. So I can't be the one asking, does it matter? I can't be asking that question. Everyone else is already ahead of me. It's just weird to stop back and ask that question. Or even if you don't feel like that, it might be something where you're thinking, if I answer the question, does it matter, with a no, what does that say about me? That's scary. What do I have to do then? I might have to change. I might have to change what I'm doing. I might have to change my perspective. I might have to do things that are different or odd or even just uncomfortable for me. And maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe it's actually safer and easier just to skip to the why does it matter instead of sitting with the does it even matter to begin with? Does writing the story, does pursuing the sales goal, does not pursuing the sales goal, does any of that really matter to me or to who I am or where I am right now? Did it matter before, but does it not matter now? Does it matter in a different way? Is it something I need to let go of or something that I need to change or something that I need to plug away at? And here's the thing. If you find even the idea of the question, does it matter, a little bit weird and strange, instead of skipping ahead to the why does it matter? Here's my why. Here are my reasons. If you're getting uncomfortable even thinking about does it matter, that just might be a sign that maybe you've been convincing yourself of something that isn't actually true for you in your author life. Now, here's the thing. I'm not against pep talks. I deal with anxiety, and I understand the need to sometimes, remind yourself, this is why it matters. This is why I'm doing this. This is good. I'm not going to run out of the room, etc. Believe it or not, parts of me have social anxiety. And so every time I'm going to a conference, I'm sitting in the car before I, get out of the car and get my luggage in. I'm sitting there going, I'm here. I did all the work. I can do this. I am not going to just drive home. I am not going to pretend like I am just here to hang out at this hotel. I can do this. I am an adult. I am a child of God. It's going to be okay. Because at that last minute, I get a bit of that stage fright or that anxiety, and suddenly I'm like, why am I here? Who is this person who decided getting into the publishing industry was a good idea? So I'm not saying this is about not giving yourself pep talks. Sometimes we all need those reminders of why we're doing something, because we can get into our own heads, we can get anxiety, we can get all of that stress. But sometimes you really do need to sit with the question of does it matter in a deeper way? Because if you're having to do really deep work or dismissive work towards yourself when you're talking about doesn't matter, or if you're having to say, well, of course it matters. Totally matters to my friends, matters here. Or if your answers are, it has to matter because I spent too much money, or it has to matter because I spent too much time, or it has to matter because otherwise these years are wasted. Those are not the best answers to that question, and I might dig a little bit deeper. You are allowed to change and shift and grow as you need to, even if it's taken you 10 different pivots to do so. You are allowed to move on from something, even if you've invested a lot of time into it, or even if you said different things. And the more that you can sit with your real reasons of why something matters, or if it matters, the more that you can move forward in confidence and take those next steps. And as I was thinking about this podcast and my channel and everything else, and I was asking, okay, does this matter? Does it not matter? What do I care about it? Or am I just trying to care about it? And again, as I was talking with a friend, they said, I think you're trying to convince yourself this matters. In so many words, they're a very blunt person. So they said, you don't like this. You're trying to force yourself to like this. And I realized that I was going to say, well, marketing matters because people care about it. And then my friend would say, oh, why does it matter to you? Why does any of this matter to you? And I'm like, I don't think it does. I don't think this Author Elevate brand does matter to me anymore. I think I'm in a different place. I think maybe I'm a little bit resentful that everyone else is getting to move on from this and I'm not. And I think that I need to move forward. And this doesn't matter to me anymore. And other things matter to me more. And through this whole process of creating videos over the last year, I have figured out more of what matters to me. And it's not this. It's not just trying to chase some specific brand under marketing when I really care about the whole author. I love that word, whole person or holistic, even though some people say crunchy granola. And I say, well, no, it just means that you have a body, a brain, all of these things together. You're not simply the tiny part of you that's an author, and everything needs to be considered in context. And if you're not doing that, you're missing out. And I realized that I needed to lean into that, and I was going to have to let things go. And I was going to have to go back and really figure out, what was I not saying or not doing to try to make something matter, to make something important, even though it didn't matter to me as much. And it has been really good to think through that. But it's been hard. It's been having to let things go, which has been sort of a relief, but also like, wow, now I actually have space to say all these things that before it felt easier and safer to say, oh, well, I have to use this brand, so I don't have to worry about doing this harder thing or scarier thing. And now I'm like, wow, I have no excuse. And that's the thing when you sit down with the question of, does it matter? Is that often, not always, but often as I've worked with clients and as I've spoken to my fellow authors, and I've spoken with authors across the table at conventions or conferences, if you find that the answer to does it matter is no, then you have to say, okay, why doesn't it matter? And what do I do next with this? And that introduces the idea of change. And change is hard. Change is stressful. Change, especially when the publishing industry is chaotic. At this point, on October 30th, 2024, Kindle Vella just abruptly sent out an email to everyone saying, by the way, we're shutting down. Those bonuses that you were relying on for your income, you're not going to get those anymore. I mean, they said it in a longer, much more carefully worded, semi-compassionate, corporate compassionate way. But that's hard. And so when you're thinking about that, the last thing you want to think about is more change. Change can be bad and scary, but it's absolutely worth it to keep trying things. And it's more worth it to be honest with yourself and make those changes than it is to sit there underneath a why or a reason that doesn't really fit you. And of course, in my case, when I sat down with that idea of does it matter and realized it didn't anymore for my old version of the podcast and where I was going with it and this whole other brand that I developed, I said, okay, well, now I've got to change. And while it was scary, it was kind of a relief to go, oh, okay, well, now I need to go in this direction. This may look like an author that maybe they wrote in one genre, and then they abruptly say, you know what? The reasons I was writing in this genre, they don't matter anymore as much as these reasons. I'm going to drop this and go to a different genre. And that's hard. And you're going to have to figure out different readers. You may have to do a pen name. You may have to figure all kinds of things. But you need to go to a place where you know why it matters to be there. And if it matters. And what that mattering looks like when you're working on those stories and when you're engaging with other authors and when you're figuring out your goals. This might mean that you're changing your priorities. It might mean that you have to do something crazy in reverse where you're going to say, hey, I was making all this income and now I need to step back and not do that. Now I need to go in a different direction. Now I need to take on a part-time job. Now I need to write in an area that's going to let me process more instead of having to always think about the market. It can go both ways. And I also think sometimes too much and too often in the publishing world, we just think about things in a very black and white way. We're like, okay, either you're there to make money or you're there to not make money. And there's so much nuance in the middle. You can be there to break even. You can be there to make money, but also have different revenue streams. You can be there to try to make income from this series of books, but not that series of books. There is breathing space. And there's more than just the six-figure author or the author who makes zero. There's more than those two things. And that's where figuring out your why and figuring out what you're doing, but also figuring out does it matter and why and what your reasons are is so crucial. And then, of course, as things change, you may have to figure that out again. There is a reason why I call it the chaotic publishing industry. Maybe previously to the 2000s, it was more stable. And as I've read through publishing history, it was. But we had the internet, and we had this idea that anyone could publish their books, and we had this way to connect directly with readers, and we didn't have to go through gatekeepers. And because of that advent of that technology, things have been crazy and chaotic ever since. It's just part of the journey, which is why you need to make sure that you can keep your own head on straight and be in groups that help you keep your head on straight. And in my case, reading scripture every day and staying close to Jesus to keep my head on straight and figure out why I'm doing what I'm doing and why it matters and doesn't matter. Because you can't rely on the publishing industry itself to be this super stable place. It is an incredibly unstable industry and has only grown more so, and that's just the name of the game. So again, let's think about those questions. Does this thing matter to you? Why does it matter to you? If it doesn't matter to you, why doesn't it matter to you? And then what are the next steps you're going to take because of that, due to that? What are you going to change? And of course, you need to answer these questions yourself. I can't answer them for you, but I know that asking them, at the very least, you can go through this very quickly and go, does it matter? Yes. Why? Here we go. And as long as that's true and sure and does seem to connect with you, and you've spoken to your close friend groups or wise counsel, and they said, yeah, that seems to make sense, you're good. If it feels uneasy, if you're saying it matters, but you're like, I feel like I'm forcing this, I feel like I'm playing a role or playing a game, it's not really me, it's not even a part of me that I can sort of understand, then sit with that. And we have this idea in culture that, well, if it doesn't fit you, but you've got to do it, then buckle down and do it. Y'all know me. I'm not really a fan of that in the publishing industry, because if you're there to just put on a fake face and try to make the money, my friends, there are other ways that you can make money, even online, even remotely, even with autoimmune conditions and chronic illness. I have both. There are other ways to do that remotely that aren't going to be as stressful, difficult, tumultuous, and potentially detrimental to your income as writing. Okay? So when you're thinking through all of this, make sure that your doesn't matter isn't just focused on because eventually I will make $600,000 a month or $1,200,000 forever a month. I'm not really in my math head right now. You need a deeper reason of why it matters. Does it matter? You need a deeper reason for all of that than the money. And you need to own that. And that will be worth it. Do the work. It's worth it. Even though that usually leads to more work. And as I warn everyone who works with me as a client or talks with me or gets advice from me, my advice comes with homework. It's just a hazard. So wrapping up, does it matter? If it does, why does it matter? If it doesn't matter, why doesn't it matter? What does this mean moving forward? You got this. Super excited for you. I know whatever place you're in right now, whether you're a super high mountaintop place and everything is great, or if you're in a super low valley where you're like, wow, my life just really stinks right now. I see you. You have value and your existence is fantastic. Also, if you haven't already, do make sure that you have subscribed to my YouTube channel, that you've subscribed on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever else. I have lots more cool things planned, and I am figuring it all out behind the scenes and getting super, super organized in ways that I haven't before, because now I'm really focused on why things do matter and what's coming next. So it's really awesome. And I am so excited you made time to listen or watch this podcast episode. This is Janeen Ippolito of Author Culture. Go forth and be awesome.